For this tutorial, I want to talk to you a little bit about how to navigate through a unit of study. Your unit of study is both in reading and writing, and for this purpose, I chose the fourth grade writing, Unit 2. And if you notice right here, it'll tell you the title of the unit. So for this, it is Writers Use Strong Story Elements to Write Realistic Fiction. This unit is projected to last 5 to 6 weeks. So knowing that in your mind, it is also important to pull out the district's assessment calendar. And within that calendar, it'll tell you when each unit and when the grade level is to assess. So having that and also knowing how long the unit is projected to be, it's important to work backwards. So I would like to always pull up a calendar with your team and plug in when the district is scheduled for your grade level to take that specific end of unit assessment. So start there, and then you work your way backwards to fill in the 5 to 6 weeks, because there is a window for those assessments, but it's important that we plan accordingly so we don't miss the assessment date. So again, there is a lot of information within each unit, so I wanted to spend some time going over each component of the unit. As you notice right here, the overview of the unit, this is such an important page. I would like for you and your team to spend some time diving into this and really understanding. It gives you a quick overview of what this unit and what its purpose is. So it tells you what the students will be going throughout the unit. It also, right here, it talks to you a little bit about what your students are coming to you with. So in grade 3, it'll say what they did within narrative writing. Right here, it offers different strategies to consider using throughout this unit. And as we move down through the unit, you're going to notice right up here there's hyperlinks, but we have changed that now. So these hyperlinks you can no longer actively click on. All of these documents are embedded within the in Canvas in your module, and I can walk you through that at another time. So as you move through, you're going to notice right here on the left-hand side, focus standards. These are your standards that you will be covering throughout the unit. And if you notice right down here, some are highlighted in green and some are highlighted in yellow. The focus standards that are in green are your MAP priority standards. So these standards will be assessed when it comes to MAP time. The yellow ones are what we really want to think about as we move through the unit. These are the standards that will be assessed at the end of each unit. So as we go through, you're going to notice there's a lot of different standards. So I would encourage you to spend some time kind of unpacking these standards and getting familiar with each of the standards. And as we continue to move down, now we're into a section called Essential Questions. Now for me, when I'm planning, I'm planning out my individual lessons, I like to go back to these essential questions, and these questions help guide how I plan for my lessons. And it may be a question I pose to students as I introduce the new lessons. And I'm continuing to move down. So now I'm back into that learning targets. And again, the ones in yellow for this unit will be assessed. So it's important that we really focus on these highlighted yellow standards so students can feel successful when it comes to the end of the unit. And as I scroll here, we get to the key terms. These are all vocabulary terms that students need to have in their tool belt to understand these words as we move through the unit. And right here, I like this section because it's a possible conferring question. So when you go and you start conferring with your students, these are some sample conferring questions that you could ask students when you sit down next to them one-on-one conferring. And it'll help you determine, are they on track, if you need to possibly pull invitational groups based off what you're learning about your students. And in this section right here, it's the resources. These are all the different resources the unit writers have suggested that could support the unit. So possible mentor text, the professional resources are more for the teacher, but the possible mentor texts, these are the texts that you want to include in your stack. Now there's a lot. Now, if we think back to Matt Glover suggests that we have at least 4 strong mentor texts that will support what we're asking students to create or do within this writing unit. Now, these are the published mentor texts, but as we know with Matt Glover, he also suggests that we have samples of student work, so student samples of their writing. And if you're a new teacher, you may have to ask a previous teacher, or I can support you in getting you some sample student work. And also you need to have your own teacher mentor. So as we move through the unit, you are actually being the writer yourself. So students see you as the writer. So you will build your stack with your own writing as well. And right here, there's a suggested apps. So as we embed technology, these are some apps that you could go to within each lesson. And then right here, this is just a quick overview of each teaching point. Again, it tells you the standards that are embedded within each teaching point. It tells you how long, 2 to 3 days for teaching point 1, and basically what we're asking kids to know. Define and describe characteristics of a realistic fiction. And then it goes into teaching point 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if you notice when there's a hyperlink, a sample lesson plan, those are actually been created by unit writers. And so we can talk more about those as well, but they're also in Canvas under the module within this unit. And it's suggested that you use that when we get to this teaching point. All right, now we're into the heart of the unit. So this is where you will look to actually plan out your individual lessons. So again, teaching point 1, here are the standards. Again, remember, green standards highlighted are map assessed. It'll again tell you 2 to 3 days to spend on this teaching point. And the purpose, define and describe characteristics of realistic fiction. As we go over to this section, instructional ideas. So these are suggested ideas that you will do for your focus lessons. For me, I like to kind of just read over all of them and get the gist of what I'm going to be instructing. And so what I do is I look at each bullet point and then I decide, does each bullet, is it worthy of a whole day, or are there some that maybe I possibly can combine into one lesson? And then right here it talks a little bit about how you can incorporate it again, the technology integration. And right here, student experiences. This is what we're going to be asking students to do in their independent writing time. So it's important to kind of look over this, and also what we're asking students to do in independent time, does it match what we modeled during our focus lesson? And again, for this teaching point, here are different sample conferring questions that you possibly could use when conferring with your students. And as we continue to scroll down, we are now on to teaching point 2. Again, here are your standards. Here's the approximate number of days, and here is here's what we're asking students to be able to do during this teaching point. Again, we're back up here to instructional ideas. Again, I like to read over all of them at once and then think in my mind, do I want to spend a whole day on one bullet, or does it make sense to combine some bullets? And also knowing, just a reminder, these are instructional ideas. If you know of another idea that will work, you feel free to do this, but most of the time these work out just fine. Again, technology integration. Student experiences, what the students will be doing when they're working independently. And again, here are some more samples of conferring questions that lend themselves to this teaching point 2. As I continue to scroll, now we're on to teaching point 3. This one has the standards as well. Now this teaching point is asking us to spend 5 to 7 days. So this is where writers choose an idea and they develop a sequence of events of realistic fiction. So again, we go back over to the instructional ideas. We look closely and read over for the gist of what we will be teaching. And then we, as the teacher, need to decide how I am going to map out these different lessons. What makes sense for you as the teacher, and also you're paying attention as you're teaching and when you're conferring and the feedback you're getting from students, how slow or how fast, I guess you could say, as you move through these instructional ideas. Teaching point 3 continued, again with the same information as in the previous teaching points. Teaching point 4, same thing. And this is where you notice they suggest that you do that sample lesson. And it'll tell you right here that it goes along with this part right here. Again, I would encourage you to read it over and to decide decide for yourself, is there some bullets that you want to combine, and how are you going to map this out over 7 to 9 days? And then now we're on to teaching point 5. Again, this is stretched over 7 to 9 days. This is where your writers will be revising and editing to get ready to publish the realistic fiction. So again, instructional ideas that you can use during your focus lessons. More student experiences, what the students will be doing when they're working independently. More sample conferring questions that you can use to guide your conferring time. So that was quick, but it was just a quick overview of how to navigate through each component of a unit of study. And now as we move forward within the year, I will be happy to sit down with you and we can kind of dive into this work more together, and as well as with your team. So if you have any questions, please don't ever hesitate to reach out and ask. I am more than happy to help you. I can even sit down with you and plan out your lessons. So thank you for spending some time listening to me. If there's any parts that were confusing or too fast, again, please let me know. All right, until the next video, I am probably going to go over how to make a lesson using CTOL. So, all right, thanks guys, bye.